Yeah, you got any New Year's resolutions going on this time?
There's always lots of resolutions. I think we all kind of strive to just see what we can improve about ourselves, you know?
I
Be the
hope so.
best version of yourself that you can be.
Yeah, that is the goal. That is what many of us are striving for.
Yeah.
For sure, not everybody, but I've never, I've always felt like waiting until the first of the year or Monday or whatever is a trap. It's just a way of procrastinating.
Yeah.
And, just like diets don't work, lifestyle changes do. If you're waiting until a specific moment to make changes and try to turn those into habits, you're just setting yourself up for failure before you even begin.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's kind of like you're waiting for the perfect moment, but the perfect moment doesn't ever present itself. So then you just kind of find yourself continuing to wait and wait and wait. And then you either kind of sink lower and really hit a point where you can't do anything but start to improve, or you just don't ever make that improvement that you want to make.
Yep. Was there a turning point that you kind of like figured all this out yourself, or was it just something that's always been a part of your personality?
Well, for sure, I can't say I have everything figured out. I think we're always
Well, no one does.
striving to learn. Exactly. Yeah, we all can keep growing and keep improving. For me, I guess it was really when I was about 16, 17, and I kind of found myself having a hard time dealing with certain people and some of my friends and in relationships. And there was a bit, I would kind of react to certain things and lash out to people who I cared about. And, in that moment, like you're just acting, right? You're just kind of like it's coming out and that's what's happening. But then you take a step back later on and you're kind of like, why did I say that thing? Or why did that comment make me so upset or get me so riled up? And so I kind of looked at that and I was like, I don't like that about myself. I want to see what I can do to improve that because I don't feel like that's who I really am. And that's kind of like a reaction. So someone recommended the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health by L. Ron Hubbard. And I read that book and it really answered a lot of questions for me about myself and gave me an understanding of where those reactions come from, those like lashing out or those responses to something that are just irrational and they
Hmm.
don't actually contribute to the moment or the relationship. And you just then feel afterwards kind of crappy about yourself. And you're like, why did I do that? I'm not trying to be a bad person. I'm not trying to be a mean person. So that book really helped me at that time. And so then since then I have been using the technology of Dianetics to help other people to find those things for themselves that they want to improve and understand the root cause of that to move past those things.
Okay. Yeah, most people I feel like would just chalk that up to regular teenage behavior. So I'm super glad that you were you were self-aware and you wanted to change that and found a way to change that because if you want to find a path to something, you can. It's just a matter of, as like I either do or do not, there is no try, I think is the quote from Yoda, Star Wars.
Yeah.
But believing you can is half the battle for sure.
Mhm.
And I also agree with the Dianetics in the sense that everything starts in the mind. So if you're
Yeah.
focusing on that, you can really ripple it out into the rest of your life and the rest of your world, relationships and everything.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like, so I have two children.
Okay.
Neither of them are in the teenage years just yet, but from the moment they were born, I had people telling me, "Oh, just wait till they're teenagers. Just wait till they're teenagers." And I don't believe that that's just the default. I mean, cranky teenagers, I don't think that's the default of just being a teenager. I
Yeah.
think that kids mirror back to you the trauma and problematic patterns that they've experienced and noticed and seen. And just like there's no bad kids, it's always a direct correlation of their environment and their interactions with people. You know, they're I don't think that they're blank slates from the
Mhm.
get-go. I think that they're all born with their little personalities. And I've seen that. I've seen, my son was born incredibly clingy and he is 10 years old and still incredibly clingy. So, we have some defaults in there. But as far as lashing out goes, teenagers just kind of it's a funny transition from kids to teenagers because when they're kids, our society and culture has taught us to control them.
Yeah.
And then when they become teenagers, you can't control them anymore. So it's like everything blows up in your face because the patterns that you were using to parent are no longer working because now they're bigger and can't be as easily controlled. So all of that to be said, I've spent from the very beginning, I'm like, okay, if I just do the upfront work, if I work really hard when they're kids, when they become teenagers, maybe it won't be so problematic.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I definitely, you know, your teenage years don't have to be terrible or rebellious or anything like this. It's definitely not some default. And what you said, Savannah, about the environments that they grow up in and how from the beginning, how they're raised and the experiences that happen to them and around them, absolutely those shape their teenage years and their adult life, of course. And one of the things that it talks about in Dianetics is, which goes along exactly with what you're saying, is basically the mind. You have a portion of your mind that is a subconscious portion of your mind that is in Dianetics, it's called the reactive mind. And that is the part of your mind where all past painful negative experiences are stored. And the reactive mind uses these negative experiences subconsciously against you in the present moment without you even knowing. So, like you said, let's say that you do have a child who is maybe they have a bit of a rough upbringing, and maybe they have a parent who spanks them very, very hard when they spill something, and they tell them that you're always making a mess and you're no good. And so that incident, because there is pain and there is upset connected to that, that is actually stored in the subconscious reactive part of the mind. So later in life, when this child, maybe they're a teenager now, maybe they're a young adult in college, there can be certain environmental factors that can then trigger that incident from earlier. And the child themselves is going to start feeling they're either going to start feeling themselves like they're no good or they're always messing things up, whatever was said in that incident in that memory, or they're going to start behaving that way towards other people and just replaying out that cycle that is there subconsciously affecting them. So it's exactly like you were saying, if as a parent and as someone who is taking care of another person, really, that's what you do as a mom and as a parent. You're taking care of another human being. If you are really treating them well and treating them with respect, like you would want to be respected, it absolutely can help them in their later years, and you don't have to go through the terrible teens or the rebellious teens.
Yeah. I think we're growing as a society and culture for sure, but we've for a long time now took this stance of children aren't really people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's created a lot of our problems,
Yeah.
which, we don't want to play the blame game. Each one of us could always do better or worse, just depending. So you gotta kind of find that balance yourself and whatnot. But most parents, I'd say, are still children themselves. We clock 18, 19 years old as adulthood, but I did not feel like an actual adult until my 30s, for sure. And when you go back and you think about how most people become parents in their early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
late teens, mid 20s. So you haven't gotten everything figured out yet. Nobody has everything figured out yet, no matter what age you are.
Yeah.
But with the maturity of development, it's not even age because there are people who, because of these traumas that you experience, and they could be mild to extreme, it doesn't matter. Just someone laughing at you because if you put on lipstick as a kid and then your mother told you you looked like a clown, that's
Yeah.
a little bit, and then just wrote it off and walked away. That can be a traumatic event
Yeah.
for a kid. That can stick with you. So it doesn't really matter how big or how small the traumatic events are. Secondary trauma is a thing. I've had clients come to me and they're like, I don't know why I am the way I am. My childhood was wonderful. There's
Yeah.
literally nothing that I could pinpoint in my childhood. Both my parents were there and wonderful and always loved me and hugged me and they loved each other. There was never any yelling or fighting. I don't understand. And it's like, well, uh, we can we can get secondary trauma just by watching the news, you
Mm-hmm.
know, scrolling on social media and coming across the that got killed or that accident, that horrific thing, that explosion in the war zone. Like there's thousands of different things. And these pile up, and if we don't have a way of processing them through and coping and integrating the experience into a better version of what we want, whether rather than by default,
Mm-hmm.
then we never allow ourselves to mature. It's not that we're not allowing, we never get the chance to mature and become what is we would consider a functioning example of a mentor of what, the next level. Because there's, I guess, new age Wiccan something or another. There's
Mm-hmm.
the maiden, the mother, and the crone, right?
Okay.
Okay. So they have these examples. And so translating that across not only women but men, we have the maiden is the child. You're experiencing life, you're bright and shiny, everything's new, you're beautiful, you're young, it's wonderful and playful. And then you become a mother or a parent, the mentor, and then well, not really, the mentor is kind of the crone. But anyway, and then you're morphing into the one who cares for and nourishes and nurtures the next generation. But the crone is she gets left out a lot
Mm-hmm.
because nobody wants to think about old age and aging and the finality of life. And I think that that's another problem in our society and culture is that we don't look up to the grandparents anymore. We don't listen to which granted, a lot of them are problematic. And but I feel like a lot of them are problematic because we haven't taken this stage of life seriously and held it to the importance of the wisdom of the older generation. So they didn't want to leave the prior stage of their life. And now we have people in positions of power who shouldn't be there because they should be transitioning towards I'm not saying like, oh, you've aged and you're old, so now you got to go like live a life of peace and whatnot. But there's a lot of jobs that we could release to the middle department who are at the cutting edge of innovation in the sense of adapt or die, right? Society and culture has to maneuver and change. The only constant in life is change. And if you get too stuck, because that's what we do as we get older, we get stuck in these patterns and
Mm.
then things don't change. So therefore nothing improves. And then that's when we see things collapsing rather than finding ways to push forward and thrive. Anyway, I don't know. Long
Yeah,
tangent.
no, yeah, no, that I understand exactly what you're saying. And it's also interesting because our society evolves so fast these days. There's so much, I mean, you just look back over the last 20 years and everything that's evolved in technology and our even just our standards of living in general and the resources that we have now compared to you're talking about, the older generation and grandparents, it's so vastly different than when they were in their youth and to what we have now that it really is also like keeping up with that pace of society. And one thing that in Dianetics I learned is all of us were trying to survive. Like everyone, like
Hmm.
all the actions we do, we're working to survive and survive in life. And of course, there's different levels of survival. A person who is alive, sure, they're surviving, but maybe they live in a tiny apartment and they have a big family and they don't have enough space and every week they're making just enough to have enough food. Sure, they're surviving, but that's not always the best level of survival. And we all strive to really survive or a lot of us strive to survive at a high level. And one thing that I learned and where I really also decided to start that I wanted to start helping others is we're also not only surviving just for ourselves. And when you look at life, you kind of see like, okay, well, I have myself, and of course, I want me to be happy, and I have hobbies I like to do. For me, I ride horses. That's one thing that I just personally love doing, and keep my body healthy and exercise and but then, of course, I have my family and I have my husband and my parents and my brother, and I want all of them to be surviving well too. And the things that I do as an individual can also influence their survival and how happy they are in their lives and how well they're doing. And then you also look and I see that okay, well, there's my whole kind of group, my friends and my colleagues at work, and even the area in which I live, my community. Of course, we want our communities to do well. We want our workplace to do well. We want our friends around us to be surviving at a high level too. And then, as you kind of mentioned, of course, there's all the news about everything that's happening in the world, most of which is not very good, especially coming from any sort of news channel. But we all want humankind and mankind to be doing well. We want there to be no war and people to be happy and surviving well and able to have freedoms and living their life. So that's one thing that it talks about in Dianetics and that I discovered from that and that really I think helps to when you embrace all these different parts of life and you look at, okay, good, so how can I not only survive well for myself, but for these other parts of life too, and work to enhance the survival of my friends and my family and my kids and my fellows around me. And so that's really where then I kind of was like, okay, so let's see what I can do to contribute to that and help others with that. And in Dianetics and in understanding the mind, which I know you also understand is very important, when you can understand the mind better and you know where the irrational behavior or the unreasonable fears or the insecurities, where those things come from, and you can help a person to overcome that and get rid of that. And in Dianetics, address that reactive mind. It allows not only that individual to survive better and have a better life, but then they can go out and then help their family and their friends. And it creates really this ripple effect that allows overall the society, young and old, to then start surviving and doing better.
Yeah. It's all about emotional regulation and taking it a step back and being able to breathe before you react. But, historically, we have always been in survival mode, and historically it was way worse than what it is now, even and anyway, so if you don't have the capacity to be patient and take a breath, and there is no time to pause, then the reaction is the easy way out. It takes a lot of strength to be patient and slow things down. And when, you know, children are telling you this 15-minute story about their Legos and the thing that they created. Like it's easy to be like, I don't have time for this right now. Can you go tell somebody else? Can you do this? Here's my phone, record it, record a video of it. That's great. Um, it takes a lot more strength to settle down and take things one step at a time because we are all on this path of moving past survival into what we consider thriving, I
Mhm.
think has gotten really muddled. So, we've become materialistic and consumeristic, and we're chasing all of these things when the only thing at the end of the day that really matters is the relationships and the community that we're a part of. Because no matter what our issues are, no matter what our goals are, each and every one of us at the underneath it all want the same things. We want happiness and peace and connection to the people in our lives. And it's so funny because we ignore all of the emotions because we don't have time and they're swept under the rug because, oh, they're not important. My emotions aren't important. What's important is that I go to work and uh, do the hard work. I don't know, whatever is at the top of everybody's priority list, pay the bills, get
Yeah.
dinner on the table. Eh, We spend a lot of time with frivolous things in hopes of gaining the things that we could already have if we ignored the frivolous things. People come over, you're having people over your house, and oh, I gotta clean everything, I gotta scrub the trash can. And then that leads people to be really stressed out about people coming over. So then they just, you know what, I just can't have people over anymore rather than allowing yourself to be human. And humans are messy. And again, not a single one of us has everything figured out. Not a single one of us has half of everything figured out. We're all just doing the best that we can with what we have, where we have it, when we have it. And instead of trying to put on this facade of what we think is expected of us and what society and culture has told us is expected of us and based on our past traumas because that person made us feel really bad about that one thing. And so we're never going to do that again. And heaven forbid there's a speck of dust or things are out of place. I have to make the place look like an HGTV magazine picture, like nobody lives here. We don't do things here. And heaven forbid it look like there's children that live here because then you've got mayonnaise on the floor and probably the ceiling too. And why haven't you cleaned that off yet? That was here 3 weeks ago when I was here. And, we only have X amount of energy and time to work with every day. And if we can just shake off the layers of what we're trying to make others perceive us as and just present ourselves honestly as we are, who we are every single day because we're someone different every single day. And, we hope that it's the best version of ourselves today, but that's always going to fluctuate and that's okay. Consistency doesn't look like what we think it looks like. It's not straight across the board all the time. It's ups and downs. But traumas do, if we can shake those off and those patterns of reaction, which does take a little bit of work, a lot of bit of work, depending on the pattern and how deeply rooted it is, because we can get these patterns brand shiny new. We're the first person that's in our lineage that's experienced them, which is common. Or we have these passed down patterns that are really ingrained that were given to us from our parents, who was given to them from their parents, and then you get that, oh, it's just all how we've always done things, and then we don't see progress. But if you can shake off these, then that leaves you with a lot more energy and space to work with so that we can do our best. And all of these are great words and stuff. And I don't think we need to convince people that this is what they want. I think they know that this is what they want.
Right.
The implementation is where we struggle with.
Yeah, how you actually achieve that. It's so true because innately for us, we are good people and we do want to be our best and we do want to, be love others and help others and have our full potential in life. And kind of how I, think of it when I read Dianetics and I understood a bit more about the mind because you really have two parts to the mind. You have the part that is the good part of your mind, which is you, and that's who you are. And that's all the good qualities. It's the part of your mind that's called the analytical mind. And it's the rational part. It's you who creates art. It's the part where you make good decisions, survival decisions in your life. It's the part where you calculate and, figure out that new recipe to be just right. Like it's the rational thinking part of your mind. And then you have this negative part of the mind, which is the reactive mind. And that is, as I mentioned, the subconscious part where our past pains and traumas are stored. And like you did say earlier, they can be big or small, and they can be physical pain or an illness, but it can also be losses or emotional trauma or upset that happens. And so when you have this reactive mind, it's kind of like, okay, when you're you're the driver and you're just like driving and you're in control, you're on the road, you know your goal, you know where you're going. But then something triggers, one of these past experiences triggers, and suddenly there is just like boom, a tidal wave of mud that just covers your windshield and a pattern goes into place where you're like, well, I can't see the road in front of me, so I'm going down this other road that I know the route. And that's what kicks in. And so when you do Dianetics, because Dianetics actually offers a very practical technique and very simple that allows you to find and locate those past areas of pain and trauma and get rid of the negative emotional charge that is connected to these experiences. And once you rid and discharge that negative emotion, you're then free from the subconscious effect that it has on you. Because, and just to give a bit of an example of an illustration, which I think is something we've all experienced, we've all eaten a food that we've probably gotten sick from. We either ate too much of it or we ate a rotten fruit food and it made us ill. And there's certain foods that now we see them and we're like, oh, I can't eat that, or it makes us feel nauseous. Let's say for this sake, it's you know, an
Cheeseburger
apple,
casserole.
a casserole, a what casserole?
cheeseburger casserole.
A cheeseburger casserole. Good.
That's what gave me food poisoning most
Exactly.
recently.
Yeah.
It wasn't
So
recent, it was months and months ago, but
yeah, but exactly. So then you get sick, you eat this rotten or this tainted cheeseburger casserole, you get physically sick because it is a toxin to your body. So in that moment, your body getting rid of that and getting sick from that is actually correct. But because there's pain and illness connected to it, that is actually then stored in the reactive mind. So then later on, maybe a couple months from now, you're going to see another cheeseburger casserole, and you might start to feel physically nauseous, or you suddenly lose your appetite. And that is the reactive mind seeing, okay, there's enough similarities in this environment here that are the same as that time when you got food poisoning from it, that the reactive mind takes over from your rational analytical mind because it's trying to protect you. But the thing is that it can't think. The reactive mind is very, it sees something yellow and it thinks that anything yellow is the same as that yellow thing. So it sees this cheeseburger casserole here, newly, that's perfectly good. It's not rotten, it's not expired. And it thinks you're in danger. That pain that you felt, that illness that you felt, it could come back. So it turns on and actually starts replaying that incident so you get that nauseous feeling. But if you look at it, if you take a step back and you look and you're like, that cheeseburger casserole A, you haven't even eaten it again. So there's no way it could make you sick just from looking at it. And B, it's not actually that same casserole that you ate before. So it's not logical. And that's where, like you're saying, being able to move past these past moments, sometimes you really have to be able to understand like what is holding them in place. Because for some of us, we can spend years doing many different things, and maybe there's methods we've worked out, and every time you're in a certain situation, you think these positive thoughts or you take deep breaths. But the thing is if those things really got to the root of the problem or handled the problem, then it wouldn't come back. And that's where the reactive mind, you have to get to the root cause and address the source and that negative emotional charge that is connected to these past memories and discharge that. So then that windshield that then gets covered in mud, as you get rid of the emotional charge that's connected in your reactive mind, the windshield starts clearing up. And once you no longer have your reactive mind, which can be done with Dianetics, and that is the goal of Dianetics, you are just have wide open vision in front of you, and all of your best qualities, your potentials, your abilities, you're able to take full advantage of that and drive your life where you want it to go.
yeah. I believe that most illnesses are psychosomatic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in Dianetics, there's a whole chapter on that. He actually talks about how 70% of the physician's roster of illnesses and diseases are psychosomatic.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's very, very interesting. And, I knew someone who actually, so many people, but one of my friends, her husband, they're both bikers. They're very athletic, and he had an accident and broke his ankle and had to get surgery. And months after the surgery, everything went fine and everything was healing fine, but he still had pain and he couldn't walk. He was walking with a cane. And so it was actually getting worse. And so he went to the doctor and they were like, well, we can do another surgery basically. And his wife, who had used Dianetics, she was like, okay, you can do the surgery, but first you need to do this Dianetics technique because you need to address really the mental aspect of this. And so he went and he did a Dianetics session, basically, where someone applies the Dianetics technique, and he addressed the what he needed to address about the incident where he broke his ankle. And he walked out of that without a cane. The pain had just gone because there was this still this mental emotional charge that was connected there that was basically making the body still have that pain and have that sensation and not properly go back to working. And I mean, there's so many stories, and Dianetics is not it's not meant for healing illnesses or anything like this, but as you say, the mind greatly affects the body and it greatly affects how we're doing physically. So it's so important to address those things and have very good mental health to be able to physically be doing well as well.
Hmm. Can you share with us what the story was that was keeping it problematic?
I don't know actually, because it's, when you address those things, it's obviously very personal.
Sure.
And you're kind of, because some of these things in our past they're very things we don't always want to look at. And that's kind of sometimes what keeps them there is we've either so hidden them or buried them or just said that they don't exist, that they're so buried because they're hard and they're painful and they're difficult for us to actually look at. So when you do Dianetics and how it works, just very simply, is there's a person who is there to basically,
I don't know if you can hear me, but we froze.
and that's basically just one
Oh,
who, oh,
you disappeared for like,
two
I don't
seconds, and now I'm back.
well,
Okay, good.
it was probably like 20 seconds over here on
Oh,
my
wow. Okay, well, glad to be back with you.
so it cut off
Could
when
you hear me?
no, everything went away.
Wow.
So I'll
Okay.
help you back. You just back up a little bit to where you're explaining the how it
The-
works. You have a
Okay.
person who leads you
Yeah, so
through and
good. So you have a person who basically delivers the Dianetics technique to you. And this person is called an auditor. And that all that means is one who listens. Because as I was saying, if you knew these things in your past that were affecting you and how they were affecting you or what was affecting you, we wouldn't have these problems that we have.
Mhm.
So the auditor is there to just help you to locate those moments of past pain and unconsciousness or emotional loss or those things that are buried in the subconscious part of your mind, the reactive mind, and helps guide you. You are the one looking at them and you are the one seeing what actually happened there and releasing the emotional charge that's connected to it. So it can be I mean, it can be, and it is a very personal journey because sometimes you discover things about yourself or about your loved ones around you who, your parents, your brothers and sisters, and you find really an understanding for yourself of what happened at that moment or why it is you feel this way about that person or whatever it may be in regards to what you're addressing. But at the end, once you're done actually looking at that past experience, whatever you're addressing, and that emotional charge has discharged and released, the person feels so much happier and relief, even when it's a tough thing to experience, whether it's an accident or a loss. But because you can then rationally look at it as a memory and as an experience, and without the pain and the upset and the emotional charge connected to it, you basically then, by removing that, you're removing the reactive instinct that that past experience had on you.
yeah, because the body doesn't know what's happening now and what happened in the past. It just
That's right.
reacts the exact same way. And
Yeah.
that's why a lot of talk therapies can be more problematic than helpful because
Mhm.
you're reliving the experience. And as you're reliving the experience, the same exact stress chemicals that are released in your body during their experience are released again. So you're oftentimes re-traumatizing yourself, which can make things really sticky when well, I mean, it's already sticky, obviously, because it's causing issues and you're here in the first place. Um, but it can make it even more problematic when you're trying to unstick it and get it out of your system and rework it. Do y'all have a certain chart that you use that, like an ankle injury can, let's look at these types of memories for that. And like we use
Not
the chakra system.
okay. Cool. Yeah, no, there's actually it's very cool because what Dianetics gives you and teaches you and what you learn is really the structure of the mind and how the mind is built. And the thing is that the mind is structured the same in every person. The content of the mind, of course, is different because we all have different lives and we all have different experiences. And even two people who experienced the same accident or the same car crash, let's say, they each have their own experience of what happened.
Hmm.
What happened to one person is not the same as what happened to the other person.
Hmm.
So when you understand how the mind actually is built and how these experiences are stored between just your analytical, your rational thinking, conscious part of your mind and the reactive subconscious part of your mind, the Dianetics technique is built and developed from the structure of the mind. So you might think that the reason that you can never have a relationship is because you had a really bad relationship when you were a teenager. And since then, that's what it is. But what you might not be aware of is that actually the reason that you always, once it gets to a certain point in the relationship and you feel like you're going to commit, so you just bail out of that, the reason for that is actually from when you were very young. And one of the things that was also discovered in Dianetics is that there are basically these negative recordings, which are called engrams. Those are the negative emotional pains and traumas and moments of pain and unconsciousness that are stored in the reactive mind. Those are called engrams. These can actually form, and you can have engrams from before you were born,
Hmm.
when you are in a prenatal in the womb. And so, for example, let's just say that there's a woman who's pregnant, and let's say that she accidentally hits her belly on the counter. And it's not too hard, but she felt the bump, and as a fetus, your bones are not fully formed. Like every contact, every bump is much more severe or harsh for a fetus than it is for you as a woman who's has a full body structure. So there's a bit of unconsciousness for the fetus that happens then. So maybe then at that moment, the mom says something like, "Gosh, I'm terrible at being a mother," or something like this. And she just says it to herself because she's stressed, she felt bad. It wasn't even meant to be anything. But that those words are stored then with that engram, that memory recording in the reactive mind. So later in life, when there is some similar situation that then unborn baby is then experiencing, that recording and that engram can get triggered, and the person might think, well, I'm just a terrible mother. I'm going to be a terrible mother, so I just won't ever have kids, whatever it might be. So that's where it's like in Dianetics, sure, there are things, of course, we know if there's some traumatic accident or a painful surgery, yes, you can address those specific things. But there's also very often things behind that you might not have even been aware of are there, that then through the Dianetics technique, you can find and locate and get rid of that emotional charge that's connected to those things that's actually really holding in place the later emotion and trauma that then just keeps getting triggered or played back or brought back into your current environment.
So how would you figure that out though? That it was something that even happened before then?
Yeah, well, in Dianetics, so just so you know, in the book, it definitely explains all of this in full detail, much better than I'm going to be able to tell you about at our, hour-long podcast. But it has to do with the structure of the mind, and because the mind is always recording. So everything, whether you're conscious or unconscious, all those moments are being recorded. And it's either in
Hmm.
your analytical mind or your reactive mind. So when you do the technique, and that's why you have the auditor there to help guide you and direct your attention to these moments of things in the past, using it's very simple. There's no unconsciousness or hypnosis or anything like this involved, but you basically just take your attention and work and look into your past, and you will find that, and again, you can absolutely like get the full concept and how to do this by reading the book, but you you basically direct your attention to moments of the past, and you can contact those past experiences. And sometimes it can be very upsetting to try to contact those, and your reactive mind might try to tell you that it's too painful to look at that thing, or that it's too emotional. But that's why the auditor is also there to help you to keep going and look and confront and see what that thing is, so that you can discharge the emotional charge from it. So sometimes, and I've experienced this personally, where it's surprising sometimes the things that do affect us. And like you said, kind of your example in the beginning, it sometimes might be a little thing. It might not be the huge, you know, accident or something that was the thing, and you think that's the obvious thing, or the really bad breakup, you think that's the obvious thing, but maybe, like you said, maybe it is something from your childhood that then was like, could even be something as simple as the loss of a pet when you were very young. But maybe, there's since been many losses, but maybe it kind of works back to that thing. And as you address some of these things later in life, you become more able to see some of those things earlier in life as well. So it's really also just having that understanding of how the mind works and the structure of the mind, so that you can understand what you're looking for and then get rid of that emotional charge connected to it.
Okay. So I kind of feel like it skirts along the lines of intuition and psychic abilities. And I don't say that to move things into woo-woo or call it crazy or anything like that, because I believe in the power of the mind and
Mhm.
how it honestly doesn't even matter if what you're coming up with is cold, hard, factual, true, happened. What matters is, does that story help you deconstruct the issue and get us to a better place? Like, you can absolutely walk out into this world and be as crazy as you want to be. You can make up everything. As long as it helps you in a positive manner be the healthiest, best version of yourself, then it's totally cool. It doesn't matter. And I think we've gotten way too stuck on uh facts and science, and which great facts and science are great, but I'm hesitant to believe that anything is an cold hard fact anymore, especially with AI and how
Mhm.
misconstrued everything can be, and even basic reality. It's all relative. you know we'd be hard pressed to find a fact that wasn't relative in some way. Like, for example, gravity is relative in the sense of, yeah, it's here, but if you go to the moon or another planet, it becomes contorted.
Yeah.
So the nature of life in all of its existence is relativity. So it doesn't really matter if we can prove that that's what happened, or if that is what happened, our brains are story based. So we learn through stories, we maneuver and live through patterns from stories. And all you have to do is decide that this is the story that created that pattern. And then you can write it off. You can explain it away. You can be like, okay, well, that story is no longer serving me. So here's a better story that I like more. And if you can attach yourself to it, it doesn't matter if it's true or factual. All it matters is if it helps.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to also be able to, as you're kind of saying, create and imagine and like put into the future what you, as you're saying, kind of want your story to be. You have to be able to come up with those ideas and look where you want to go and create the future that you want. Because it's true, if you just take everything based on what someone says or what is on social media or what the news is saying or what, your teachers are saying, whatever it might be, you might not end up where you want to be. So there's definitely an aspect for sure of imagination and creation and putting those futures there for ourselves that we would like to see ourselves achieve so that we can work towards those things and work towards improving ourselves for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even within our minds, false memories are probably more prominent than actual memories in all of our heads. And for a lot of reasons, denial, shame,
Mhm.
are big ones. So because innately we are all good people. We want to be
Yeah.
good people
Yeah.
anyway. Not all of us succeed at that, but for the most part, all of us want to be good people. And instead of admitting our faults and taking responsibilities when we mess up, because we're going to mess up, none of us are perfect. Again, being a human is hard and messy and reactive.
Yeah.
So we create the stories in our heads of how we rationalize our behavior and we make excuses for ourselves and we say, oh, we did this because of that. And and like a lot of people just completely disregard any like, oh, that never happened.
Yeah.
It did though. And
Yeah.
that's why it's best just to like live in your own little reality bubble and let others tell you what their reality bubbles are like with an open mind and take it with a grain of salt. You just take everything with a grain of salt because every single one of us are living in a slightly different to dramatically different reality bubble, and we can't see into each other's. We can only listen and let the other explain to us how they're experiencing reality. And oftentimes we are very surprised when we really stop and listen that the differences between how everybody else is perceiving life are vast.
Yeah. It's so true. And it's just touching back on that earlier point that you said of being able to take responsibility for some of these things that we've done. It's so true. Sometimes it's very hard and we don't want to admit that we messed up or we don't want to admit that we slipped and did that thing that we knew we shouldn't have probably done or wasn't actually really good, but we did it anyways. As you said, because we are basically good and we do try to be the best for ourselves. But then you're right, by not really confronting those things or not really acknowledging those things within ourselves, we kind of just push them back. They get hidden, and then it still kind of sits on us. So it can definitely influence then, how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive others when we have those things, shame, blame, what have you, sitting there without really taking responsibility for our own actions and what we have done. So I agree. I definitely think that's very important and it is hard sometimes, but it's kind of like, the way out is the way through. You gotta confront it and you gotta look at it and you gotta know what you did wrong and fix it so you do it right and then get better and better. So yeah, I definitely think that's a very big part of growing and being able to understand ourselves. But then I think you also, as you're kind of saying, like you do then understand others a better too. And I think that's for me, especially in just learning more about the mind through Dianetics, that's been a big thing for me. Like you said, like everyone has kind of their own universe. Everyone has their own reality and their own understanding of things. And when you understand yourself better and you understand the mind better, I feel that it helps you to understand other people better.
Hmm.
And you kind of understand their, their faults a bit more and why they have these problems, and you get less irritated by them, and you know what's a bit more what's happening, and the things that they're struggling with or that they might be dealing with, and why maybe these reactions that they're having to you know that it's not maybe like some personal thing against you, but there's something else going on in their universe. So I
Hmm.
think that it really helps to just for yourself. Of course it helps you to feel better, but it also helps you feel better in your relationships, I think, and I found, because then you understand that person so much more, and just your ability to have, I don't know if compassion is the right word, but understanding of them and reality with them is much easier, I feel.
Absolutely. Yeah. The people who, it's all a projection, right? We're always mirroring and we're always, the universe is mirroring things back to us. So, the things that we take personal are oftentimes the things that we're insecure about within ourselves. And if you are secure in who you are and you're confident, you love yourself, you're always doing your best, you are gentle and compassionate with yourself, then you are that way with everyone else. So when someone lashes out to you, it's not well, I, I'd never. Uh, it's, oh man, are you okay? What's going on? Did you eat today? Or are you having a hard time? What's going on? And it allows you the space to be more compassionate and not take everything personally. So, I agree completely that learning who you are and how your own mind and body works helps you navigate relationships for sure. And that's hard for a lot of people because again, nothing more important in this world than our connection to others. Nothing is more rewarding and nothing is more painful. So, a lot of people, a lot of us recluse away because of the pain, and then we're soaked in this loneliness and wondering why. And sometimes it does take reclusing into yourself for a while so that you can figure everything out and get your own mind straight before you can go back out and try again. And the sad part is that no matter what you do, some of those relationships are never going to be repaired. Some of them never were any kind of stable to begin with. And you start to learn that the more you work on yourself. And then it's a different kind of hurt, but also if you are secure and okay with quietly being with yourself, then everything else starts to very, very painfully slowly fall into place and build upon it. And, from destruction comes rebirth. The phoenix, it's destroyed in the ashes and reborn from the ashes or whatever. And sometimes it has to be like that. Sometimes you have to just start from scratch and just burn everything down and then build it all up in a healthier manner. You got to make a mess to clean a mess.
Yeah. And anyone, I think, can do that. I think at any point, no matter where you're at, you are able to take a moment and change and make those changes that you want to see. It doesn't matter how big the mess is, as you say, you can clean it up and you can then create a life and a future that don't involve those messes, and recognize or find something that then is going to actually help you to uncover why that mess got so out of hand in the first place, so that then the next time, we do learn from our experiences. We do have a certain amount of, "Ooh, that didn't work," or "that ended really badly." So now the next time I'm not going to do it quite that way. I'm going to, change this so that it's not this big mess. And you mentioned earlier, pain and pleasure. And when we do more and more survival actions, we have more pleasure, right? When we are like making the good decisions that enhance our survival, we have pleasure, whether that's the accomplishment of a goal or winning a competition that we're working for or getting good grades or whatever it might be. And then when we make bad decisions or we have non-survival choices that happen in our lives, that brings us towards pain, whether it's, a relationship or it's failing at something because you didn't maybe take all the actions necessary to be successful at it. And that's where, by understanding the mind and understanding where the irrationalities and the non-survival decisions and reactions come in from your reactive mind, then you're able to actually start addressing those things, but also looking at the positive things within yourself. And when those reactions start coming out, that's not me. That's not actually who I really am. I'm not actually that person who lashes out or does those harmful things or thinks those negative thoughts. Like that is the subconscious part of my mind, and I know that I'm better than this. And that is really a even just having that. And that was the biggest thing for me when I first read Dianetics is I was like, okay, I know that I am actually a good person and that I can actually be the person who I want to be, and my past doesn't have to define me, which I think is a huge step and a huge relief for a person to know and to understand.
Yeah. And I think we're doing really well at making more of this stuff common knowledge, and
Hmm.
more people are learning how to do better and
Yeah.
get rid of their patterns, their triggering patterns, and find a more healthy way of moving forward so that we can create better ripples for everyone involved because, you know, these interactions are contagious. And if you have a good interaction, then that ripples out in a positive manner. And if you have a negative interaction, that also ripples out in a not so great manner. And thank God for the internet that brings all of us together to be able to have these conversations. So knowledge is much more prominent now, so we have paths that we can follow. And then there's tons of different tools that more or less all get us to the same goal. And historically, that wasn't something that people had.
Mhm.
So, even in my life, so even in my, it's a super, super, super new thing for people to be working on their selves.
Hmm.
Historically, that is not something that people did at all whatsoever. Everybody was just stuck in their ways, and it just was what it was. And that's how we ended up with adult children running around, having children, and then passing on their negative patterns to those children who then grew up and passed it along to everybody they interacted with, so on and so forth till the end of time. So I'm very excited that things are moving in a positive direction for us all. I can't imagine. What was the guy's name who created this?
L. Ron Hubbard.
Him. Okay,
Yep.
so this was in the 50s.
Yep.
Bless his soul. Can you just imagine? He's sitting here, he's seeing how traumatized and reactive everybody around him is, because they still always are. Everybody around you almost is reactive. And I've been there. I've been the person who's like, can we rationally talk about this though? And then, they're yelling and screaming and accusing and throwing out things that don't even relate to the thing. And so I love tracing things back through the passageways, which obviously is something that Dianetics does also. But
Yeah.
it seems very easy to me to see how it became a church
Yeah.
because that's, if you feel so lonely and disconnected from everyone around you, it only makes sense that it would end up in a church format where you'll create this little bubble of like-minded individuals that you can find safety in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually very interesting you bring that up, and I think you can understand this, but as it was actually L. Ron Hubbard, yes, he wrote Dianetics, and he really from a very young age was very interested in understanding life and people and what is kind of that driving force for all of us. What is that thing that, we all have in common that keeps us going forward. And so he actually traveled all over the world. And yeah, back in the 20s and 30s, which was not so easy to travel all over the world at that time. And he ended up studying 21 different primitive races and cultures, and including many Eastern Asian religions and philosophies and wisdom. And then he also, though, was very grounded in the sciences and in engineering. He studied at one of the first classes on nuclear physics at George Washington University. So he really took kind of both of those things, what he knew of the humanities and the wisdom that he had learned from these different cultures, and then the exactness of mathematics and engineering, and use both of those things together to develop Dianetics and discover this reactive or subconscious part of the mind. And to your point and what you're saying about how then Dianetics evolved into a church and into Scientology is basically, as when the book was published in 1950, it exploded, really. It became just a wildfire movement first across the US, because he's obviously American and that's where it first was released. But then it started going internationally, and people were so happy to have just a simple understanding of the mind and understanding of something they could do to better themselves, just taking the book, reading it, working with another person, and doing it. And so, as people started discovering and doing Dianetics, L. Ron Hubbard, and he continued his research after he published the book, but people continually realized that they were remembering things from past lives. And so L. Ron Hubbard then actually started looking into the more spiritual side of individuals. And then that is where Scientology came about. So Dianetics itself addresses the mind. And it is Dianetics, the modern science of mental health. And it is the forerunner and sub-study of Scientology. And people all over the world use Dianetics from many walks of life, from many religions, from many different cultures. It's translated into 50 different languages now because it's all over the world and millions of people have used it. Because the thing is no matter what your religion is or what your race is or where you're from, we do have a mind and we do have things about ourselves that we want to understand and that we want to improve. So that really is Dianetics is for anyone who, as you said, having the knowledge about ourselves and about the mind is so important. And even just knowing, as I've said multiple times, just how the mind works and where these unreasonable fears or irrational behavior or the insecurities or the anxiety, where those things come from, and knowing that there's something you can do about it helps a person so much to be able to start improving themselves.
Yeah. I feel like it's super important for us to explore the spiritual aspects of our life also.
Yeah.
You know, I think a big problem that we have is that we've sectioned ourselves off into a mind,
Mhm.
body,
Mhm.
and then maybe some of us, if you're into that weird woo-woo stuff, uh, spirituality, except for like super religious spirituality, that's not crazy or woo-woo. That's rock solid magic. That is. But anything else outside of these specific words, uh, in these specific languages, I'm a little, what's the word? Back in my day, we would have called it jaded. I'm a little ornery right now about religion and whatnot because I've been hitting brick walls everywhere I turn with yoga because I continuously have people tell me that their religion doesn't allow them to practice yoga.
Mhm.
And that, when I first started hearing it, was a complete shock to my system because what are you talking about? We're stretching. We're strengthening our bodies. Like, what are you even talking about? Religious aspects. So I could go on the rabbit hole for that for ages. But I imagine you guys experience similar issues. And at the end of the day, I feel like we should all take the time to learn about different cultures, different religions, different personality, like, not, sorry, reality bubbles that we're all a part of because what's normal in one place is completely alien in another place. And we should all collectively just, I'm having a really hard time finding words today. Objectively, look at things with an open mind and know that it's safe for us to learn about things and then choose in and of ourselves whether or not we should adopt this or that.
Yeah.
Knowledge is power, and
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best way to learn about anything is to look for yourself and to look to the source, for yourself. And you have to look and then decide what is true for you. You can't just base it off of what this person says or what social media says or what the news says or what this person says. Like, sure, you can see those things, but then you have to look and see, okay, but what have I observed? What do I see? What have I learned about these people that I've talked to that, practice this or do this? Or what have I seen about this culture or this religion? And actually then look for yourself and find out because you're the one who's going to make the decision or choose to maybe partake in that thing or not. But if you don't have the actual knowledge, which is so important, then you're not going to be able to make the best decision because you don't know. And whatever the media is saying, you, it's not the truth. Like there's not the full truth there, unfortunately. So you have to actually go and you have to look and find out for yourself. And yeah, knowledge is power. And the more knowledge that you have and the more you learn about something, so that you can look and use that knowledge then that you have, not just to learn about it or look at it just to say, well, I looked and I still think this way because I already knew that I wasn't going to change my mind or learn anything. That's not really then actually learning. But if you take that data and you take that knowledge and then you can decide and you can look and you can analyze and make decisions. And that's so important. And Dianetics, actually, the word itself, is taken from the Greek dia, which means through, and nous, which means mind or soul. So, really, Dianetics is what the mind or the soul is doing to the body. And so, yeah, like, if people want to learn more, the best thing to do is to read the book and then just see for yourself. Maybe you love it, maybe you hate it, but at least then you've looked and with your own certainty what it is for you and you understand that area and that subject so that you can make your own decisions and have your own really integrity on it and your own point of view on it objectively so that you can then say this is can enhance my life or it's not for me or whatever it might be. But you're right. You do have to look for yourself and you have to decide for yourself. And we can never stop learning. And I agree with what you said. I think it's so important to just keep learning and understand other people and understand the world around us because we are all here wanting to survive and do well. And majority of us want to help other people do well. We just might not know exactly how to do that or the best way to go about it, or we've had some failures at being able to do that. So maybe we don't feel that we can anymore. But ultimately, people are good and they do want to help. So yeah, having knowledge is so important in that.
Yeah, you have to do your own research in literally everything.
Yeah,
And we are all stuck on this planet, for better or for worse,
that's right.
until we die.
Yeah,
So it make think, this it could be a complete and utter hellhole, or it can be a magnificent and beautiful place to
yeah,
exist. And the difference for the majority part is, are we connected to one another and helping one another? And are we in it together, or are we just looking for reasons to us versus them?
right.
The competition.
Exactly. Yeah, and it just doesn't work like that because it is true, exactly what you're saying. We are in it together. You as an individual, you can't survive just by yourself or just even you and your family. Like you need other people there and you need those connections and you need the other, resources that are provided by the people in the town and in the community and in the country. And so we all do really need each other. So it's so important that we have that understanding, not only of ourselves, first of ourselves and of other people, because just going back to how what we've talked about, but gaining that understanding of yourself really does allow you to have that understanding then for another.
Yeah, united we stand, right? Because the more divided we are, the easier it is for people who, I hesitate to say bad people because, again, as we've reiterated, most people do start out good. It's the traumas that have been inflicted on them that cause them to make the decisions that they make. But these extremists, to the more divided we are, the easier it is for extremists to step into a role of leadership. And, you know, they say that they're, I'm going to butcher this, but you'd never recognize the devil walking down the street because we think we know what the devil would look like. We'd be able to recognize him, but he's actually very polished and says all the right words. And that's just an example. I'm not saying that I'm religiously in one direction or another. I love to just keep people guessing and learn all the things. But I had another point. I don't remember what it was.
No problem. But yeah,
What?
I do think, as you said, I think it's just important to learn and important to look for yourself. And I guess that's also one thing for me with Dianetics is like one thing that's just so special about it is you looking to understand yourself. It's not someone analyzing for you and telling you, well, this is why you act this way, or this is why you feel this way, because let's face it, no one knows us better than we know ourselves. And yeah, maybe we have more to learn about ourselves, but you're the only one who's experienced those things. You're the only one who understands why you feel certain ways about certain things. So for someone else to then come and tell you this is why you are this way or this is how you are, you know, putting you in a box or giving you a label, I mean, they don't know. You're the one that knows. And so when you are the one who is given the opportunity to discover those things and uncover those things and go really on that adventure of your past and who you are and what's happened to you and why you do feel these certain things or why you have those nightmares or whatever, it's such a beautiful experience. And once you once you use Dianetics, like the whole goal of Dianetics, as I mentioned in the beginning, is to rid yourself of your reactive mind and of the negative emotional charge that is there that is allowing these subconscious reactions to occur. And when you rid yourself of that, you then achieve the state which is called clear. You've cleared your mind of these irrational calculations that enter in. And so you are then fully able to be yourself and to all the best qualities of yourself are able to then really shine through. And you're more intelligent, you're more creative, you're more able to take those abilities that you have and utilize your potential in life to go after the things that you want. And it brings out all of that goodness and all of the good quality that you innately have as a person and allows you to use that to the fullest. So yeah, it's just something that it's so important. And I think it's just beautiful that it gives you an opportunity to understand yourself for yourself without some other analyzing going on.
Yeah, the waters aren't muddied anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You're just able to, I mean, I've seen people who there was this one husband and wife who he was a very successful businessman. Like, I mean, money was definitely not a problem. They were very well off and they had this beautiful young toddler. And their relationship was good, but he had a problem with alcohol. And he would, for a while, it would be fine. And he would just, wouldn't drink. But then suddenly something would trigger and he would just, it was uncontrollable. And they basically were in Los Angeles. That's where I am on vacation. And they found Dianetics and, got Dianetics. And then some months later, the wife called one of my colleagues that I work with, and she was like, I need help. Like, he went on a business trip and he's just totally smashed, and I can't do this anymore. Like, it just continues to happen. And for her, obviously, it was then putting strain on their relationship, but then she's scared for her. She doesn't want her child growing up in this environment. And so we helped, get him to a Dianetics Foundation so that he could actually address the root cause of what happens that then triggers him to then feel like he needs to turn to alcohol or compulsively then drink too much. And by doing that, I mean, not only it probably saved his life, but it absolutely saved his marriage. And through doing the Dianetics counseling over a bit of time, some weeks, he was able to actually fully handle that and address that. And since then, this was, gosh, some years ago now, but since then, he hasn't had any problems with alcohol. And it's not even like he just doesn't drink at all. He can have a drink and that's fine. That's all that he doesn't have to have a compulsion that it gets to such an extreme that it puts him in jeopardy and causes a strain on their relationship. So it's just the ability to, because in his example, like he was successful. He had a good life, except for this one part that was a big part that then was affecting his not only himself, but his marriage and ultimately to some degree his business, because then he has strains on his marriage. So then he gets more stressed out at work. It becomes kind of this spiral. One area of our life isn't doing well, it does have repercussions on the
Mhm.
other areas of our lives.
Yep.
So, but exactly, when you're able to address the root cause of that and you get rid of that negative emotional charge, then you are just free to utilize the best parts of yourself to make your life really what you want it to be. And that's for me personally, and from many people who I've helped and worked with, that's really the beauty of Dianetics, is allowing a person to be the best version of themselves and achieve and create the life that they want.
Yeah. I like how earlier when I lost my point, you picked it up and ran with my point, and I was like, "Oh,
Really?
that's what I was." Yeah, it's the responsibility
Yeah.
aspect. It's responsibility is scary for people, and nobody wants to be a leader, and that's something that clicked with me in my like mid 20s.
Mhm.
I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Somebody should do something about this."
Yeah.
Oh crap, I'm somebody. And I guess I could, like there's nothing physically stopping me from. But responsibility is scary for people, and that's why they just put unquestioning faith in their religion, their pastor, their government leaders, their doctors, the healthcare system, like all of the things. And they
Yeah.
don't want to do the research because then that's responsibility on themselves. And if they make the wrong decision, then you have to eat that. You have to
Yeah.
live with that. And
Yeah.
that's hard. It's much easier for people. And that's why the divide and these not so great leaders come about because we're so desperate to have somebody tell us what to do and how to think and what is right and what the right choice is because it's terrifying to admit that the right choice is relative and you may never know what the right choice is. And there's no guarantee no matter what choice you make. So, life is scary.
Yeah. It's totally true. And I mean, that's beautiful that you recognize that when you were in your 20s, because there's so many people who, yeah, they look around and they say, well, this isn't the way that this should be, and this should be better, and someone should do something about this. And it's like, okay, well, here's a mirror.
Hmm.
It's our community, it's our society. I mean, change comes from individual people. There's
Hmm.
not some big, whether it's a government or some higher being or something, it's not just going to magically happen because they said so. It's going to
Hmm.
be each one of us individually taking some sort of action and being responsible for first, of course, for ourselves and our own actions, but then expanding that sphere out into your family and into your community and into your own society to make those changes that you want to see or do something, even if it's something small. You're right. Taking responsibility for it is a lot better and more effective. And you also feel better when you start doing that
Hmm.
because you feel much more like you're in the driver's seat of your life as opposed to just like being a passenger watching all the cars go by.
Hmm. Yeah, but it takes bravery, and bravery is a choice, not a
Yeah.
character trait that you're born with.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
If
very
you're
true.
born with it, you're probably just dumb and don't know any better.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's true. Having responsibility. And I think responsibility is also part of self-improvement because you have to recognize and be responsible and be willing to look at those things that aren't the best about yourself and aren't the best about maybe some of the choices you've made. But once you can do that, then you can just start making strides in actually improving yourself for the better and thereby improving and helping those around you as well.
Yep, I agree. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up for folks. It's a beautiful day outside, and I'd like to go spend some time in it. Have you always been in LA?
I am actually born and raised in Los Angeles. There's
Okay.
not a lot of people, native LAers, but I am one of those people. I have traveled a lot around the US. I lived in the Midwest for several years, but yeah, mostly in Los Angeles.
Okay. My husband and his brother were born right outside of Bakersfield,
Okay.
in Indio. I
Yeah,
don't know
I
if
know where
you're
that is.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always, I love to see where people are from and again, follow the little taglines back to, how their geographic location may have influenced who they are as an individual now. So it's always just fun for me. And plus, since I'm all about building community and
Mhm.
togetherness and all of that, if I put your location and where you're at, your community, your little individualized community on all the things, people look at it and they're like, "Oh, I'm from there." It's in there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I love it.
All right. Well, tell people where to find you and all that.
Great. So yeah, you can find out any more information at Dianetics.org. And if you are interested in reading the book, you can get it on Amazon or really any bookstore. Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health. And you can always reach out to me. My name is Alyssa. You can reach out to me at AlyssaB at Dianetics.org. So thanks very much for having me, Savannah. It was super wonderful to speak with you.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. You're obviously very passionate about this and how it can be used as a tool to help people.
Yeah.
And I love bringing new tools for people to try out because we're all not a single person on this planet can tell you that this is the way to fix yourself. We're all just throwing noodles at the wall and seeing what sticks. And if you find something that sticks, that's great. Sometimes you find something that sticks with the first noodle, and sometimes you have to throw the whole damn pot at the wall to hopefully get a couple to stick. But, we just keep on trying, and where there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you having this platform and giving me the opportunity to yeah, share something I'm very passionate about. So thank you very much.